Hello everyone, I welcome you all to yet another session from K21 Academy where we help you in your journey to learn cloud. In this session, we are heading towards what is Helm in Kubernetes. We have taken a clip from one of our certification training program on Docker and Certified Kubernetes Application Developer, which is CKAD. And in this clip, our instructor will talk about what is Helm in Kubernetes. Before we dive further, let's take a look at the agenda. We will start this session by understanding why Helm is important. After that, we will look into what is Helm, then understanding package managers, and after that, how to install Helm, and finally, what is Helm Charts and why it matters. In the end, I will also share details about our free masterclass, which will not only help you to learn basics, but it will also give you an idea of the learning part to follow. It would be helpful, especially when you're preparing for Docker and Kubernetes Application Developer, which is CKAD. Now let's hear from our expert on the same.
So what happens is when I have to deploy an application, say for example, I was deploying a MariaDB example, right? Where I had to create a couple of config maps, couple of secrets, and I created a couple of deployments, and I kind of deployed the whole application, right? Over the time, what has happened? So if I, as a developer, give that to you, if I say, to set your application, you have to do these multiple things. You have to create a couple of config maps, create a couple of namespaces and secrets, and then go ahead and create a couple of containers or pods, and then deploy this application. That's how it works. So it was little complicated, right, for the end user who to make use of it and deploy it. I had to make my application run. I had to make use of certain different things. I have to run kubectl commands and then make my application accessible. So what happened was they kind of came up with a tool which is called as Helm, which kind of simplifies all of these. It's called as a package manager for your Kubernetes. Say for those who come from OpenShift, maybe there's a Play Store in OpenShift. If I want to deploy an app, I go to the Play Store, I double click on it, I fill in the form, the application gets deployed, and all of that gets created. Right. Similar way, we have a tool in Helm where it lets me, configure and deploy and run my application with simple commands. I don't have to worry about, creating the services or creating the deployments, config maps, and all of that. Instead of, I make use of simple commands which will deploy and set things up for me. It was, developed for running applications on your Kubernetes, and it is supported by a lot of community, and that's the reason why it is pretty famous, right? So Helm is an open source tool used for packaging and deploying your applications on Kubernetes, right? It's often referred as your Kubernetes package manager. I'm going to compare this with our package managers for our binaries for applications, what we have on our Linux systems, right? So if I want a package, if I want some application to be installed, if I want to do it myself the hard way, for example, say for example, I have to install 𝗪𝗵𝗆 server. There is a binary out there in the, I'm just using this as an example, right, to compare that with the package manager. Say if I go to the GitHub of Kubernetes, there is this zip file out there. I download it, and I configure. There are configuration files. I made entries into that. I install and then run it as a service, for example. Or simple ways, I do yum install kubelet or yum install kubeadm. The package manager will take care of the different things of pulling those files, downloading that, configuring, resolving those dependencies, and running that for me. Similarly, when I want to run an application, I make use of Helm. There are people out there who have created the YAML files, whatever is needed for your project. You can create your own projects, your own Helm charts, or there are like the images what we have right now. Like I go to Docker Hub and download the files. We have the hub for our charts where we go and download the files, and making use of that, I can run and deploy my application, right? So Helm is known as the Kubernetes package manager because of its similarities with the other package managers. What you find, it has a lot of community support, and there are a lot of charts what people have created and made available there. I know we still don't know what do we mean by charts. Charts are nothing but a bundle of YAML files, and you push them in one repository. That bundle of YAML files contains all of the needed, all the YAML files which are needed for running your application. I will show you a couple of examples. We will get more clarity around that. So package managers are there to simplify the process of your installing, your upgrading, removing your applications, or resolving your dependencies and stuff like that, right? Uh, that similarly, if I want to deploy an application on my Kubernetes cluster, say for example a common application, maybe Elasticsearch application or some Prometheus application for monitoring, most of the places the configuration would be same, or the way you set things up would be same for that application. Instead of creating different YAML files around it, I bundle all the YAML files created as a chart and leave it out there. And if you want to make use of that, you download the chart and you say install. That whole application will get installed. The images will be pulled, the deployment will be created, the services will be created. Whatever is needed to run that application is created with a simple command. If you want to compare that with DNF, maybe DNF is the package manager in your CentOS based, Red Hat based servers, where you have commands like DNF install to install some package. If you have upgrade, or you got downgrade or remove. Similarly, we have the Helm commands where you say Helm install or Helm upgrade and rollback and stuff like that. Right. Say for example, if a developer has been given a task for deploying a MySQL database onto Kubernetes cluster, the developer would need to create the resources required to configure container, like your network, your storage, your container, right? And he needs a lot of what? Kubernetes knowledge to do that, right? And like if I want to configure that application from scratch and create those, different configurations, we need to have Kubernetes knowledge. And that can be a big hurdle for somebody who's new or maybe intermediate to Kubernetes cluster, because they might not be knowing how to create that network or to create the storage or the configuration and secrets and all of that, right? With Helm, what a developer does is tasked with deploying MySQL database could simplify. He can just search for MySQL charts out there, who or somebody would have created in the repositories. These charts would already have been written by some developers, chart developers, right, in the community, and would already contain the declarative configuration for deploying MySQL. You're with me so far, right? So that I am tasked with doing something. I have to do everything from scratch. I'm a new user, beginner. I do not have access or do not have enough knowledge to do all of that. But there is community out there who have already set up and configured MySQL, and they know a way how to do that. And they have prepared all of that and kept it available for me in some centralized repository. Now what I do is download that particular repository details, what they've given, the configuration files, and I modify to match my requirement. Instead of doing everything from scratch, I just set some variables around that and make use of that. That's one simple example if I have to give you, right? So you kind of act as an end user to your Helm. You download it and you start consuming it just by modifying the way you want. So using Helm, we can install your software, automatically install your dependencies, upgrade it, configure your deployments, and pull your softwares from your uh, repositories. How does this work? There are two things. One is your Helm library and Helm your client and library, right? So your Helm client is your command line tool for end users like us. It's responsible for local chart development or managing your repositories or managing your releases and stuff like that. You have a library which provides the logic for executing all your Helm operations. It interfaces with the Kubernetes API, and it provides you a couple of things like combining the chart with your configuration bundle and a release and stuff like that. What I mean, just like Helm is a add-on which you have to install. It doesn't come default with our Kubernetes. If I go to documentation and search for maybe Helm, it's going to maybe point me to the install. It's taking me to some blog, which blog is a little older. So maybe if you Google, and it's going to take me to installing Helm, right? It tells you how do you install Helm, and it's pretty cool. Installation guide. Maybe I will drop the one I have. I think there is already an installation available. You can download the version, you can untar it, and you can run it, right? Or you can also download it from here. This is what we will do right now. this is going to run the script, which is going to download the binaries needed and set Helm up for us. And then I'm going to show you a few things around Helm. It's going to make you understand a few things. Let me just verify the version just to see if Helm is working fine. It's in my local user local bin. It is working fine. So now I can search for different things. I'm going to show you. There is this repository. Maybe somebody out there has created. Search the hub. There's a Helm hub out there. If you want to search for any Kubernetes package, say for example, I gave you example of MySQL. If I click on that, there is somebody out there who already has created a chart file out of it. If I click on it, and it says, if you want to make use of this and run this, what you need to do. It says you need to add this Helm repo and just do install MySQL. And if I click on install, it's going to give me that same commands as well. Hold on to this. I'm going to come back. Maybe I should have done the search first. If I want to search for if there are any charts out there with the name NGINX, there are many of them. Just like we search the image, if you remember, Docker search NGINX would give me a lot of from Docker Hub, right? Helm search will give me from your Helm Hub. If I want to add and make install, for example, I want to make use of this NGINX. Let me now go back to the Helm Hub. I'll do NGINX. And it says there is already this available if you want to install. There's somebody out there already created the chart. I can just add this repository and install this application. I'm going to do exactly the same thing, and we'll come back and we'll see how we can modify things, stuff like that. It says adding the repository. And when I say install this particular version, so it gives me little information. It is deployed this application, in the default namespace, and it says, you can access it this way if you want. The service is already exposed. Let me do this kubectl get all. Oh, I should have cleaned up the older ones. Let me quickly do that. Kubectl delete deploy. All right, so I was showing you of how to search from the Helm hub. If I do a Helm search from hub NGINX, it's going to show me certain things. If I take you to the repository, if I take you to the artifact hub, it tells me what I need to do. If I just scroll up, reduce the font size a little bit, it tells you information about what is NGINX and stuff like that. And it tells you what you need to have, how do you add this particular chart, and how do you install this application. When I install this application, maybe, let me just install it real quick and then show you around and talk to you about it. When I say install a particular application, it'll create a deployment for me. It will create the application for me and all of that. kubectl will get all. There's already a deployment created. There's a service created. With the help of one command, I configured. I say use a simple example of nginx. Whatever got created was created by somebody else. What if I want to modify it? What if I want to configure it? Right? That is the question, right? So if you look at the information, the way the charts work is, you can specify or set values around it, and the developer or the builder of the chart would have given you all of that information. When you build your own charts, you can do Helm chart and you can create your own charts as well. And maybe I will show that to you real quick. But what I'm trying to tell you is there are few information like Google global parameters, your common parameters, or your nginx parameters, right? Like maybe which repository should look like, where should it go? Default value is Docker.io. If you want to go somewhere else, what do you need to do? How do I change that? This is what all of the information is coming from where? From somebody who's already built it. What if I want to modify? You can do that in a couple of ways. One is when I install, I can set. So for example, image pull policy was set to never. I want to change that when I install this particular application, right? Then I can make use of hyphen set and change that policies. Whatever, well, policy is just an example, whatever values I want to configure. Or I can put all of those values, what I want according to my application or my need, into a YAML file and make use of the YAML file and make use of that when I install. So somebody already created all those YAML files what I needed. It is already out there in the hub. I read that, I see what changes needs to be done, and to match my application, I make use of that and get it done. Like for example, if I want to use a different version, what I need to do and stuff like that, right? There's a lot of information out there. There are a lot of images or a lot of charts out there. Maybe if I make use of another example of Elastic Search, and if you want to set up and configure this, maybe you have to create your PVCs dynamically. You have to set up some stateful set up some services, some config map. Instead, all I got to do is add this repo, install this. It will do a lot of things which I had to do manually, all of it by itself, right? So that is our Helm charts. What do I mean by chart? What do I mean by Helm chart? So Helm charts, they use a packaging format called as charts. Charts are nothing but a bundle of all your YAML files. There's a way, uh, there's a there's a syntax around it. In the YAML file, you need to have certain files like charts.yaml, which define all of your application, right? So a chart is a collection of files that is related to your resources, what you're creating. A single chart might be deployed using something simple, like a memcached or a pod, or it can be a full web stack. Basically, chart has all of your YAML files, what it needs, right? Charts are created and laid out in a particular directory tree structure. They can be packaged into, versioned into archives and deployed. So what we do is they are created as generic as possible. You can also set values, and if you can do configure them as and when you need it. So if you have your application, you create it as a Helm chart, Helm create, and you create it as a chart. It has all the YAML file which is needed to create and deploy your application. You push that to a repository, and anybody out there internet can download it, and just with the help of simple commands like Helm install, they can install and run those applications. I'm going to show you practically, and then it's going to make more sense. What is Helm? Why does it matter? It makes your application deployment easy, and it improves your developer productivity, reduces complexity, and and stuff around that. The example I gave you is MySQL. If I want to set things up from scratch, I need to have a little bit of Kubernetes knowledge, which I might have or might not have. Instead, somebody's already done that work for me. Somebody's already created a chart, meaning all the YAML files needed for setting those up. I make use of that, and I maybe configure it just a little bit to make it work for my use.
That was a clip on what is Helm in Kubernetes. Now, we have put down everything about the certification, including basic concept that one should know everything like container basics and Docker networking, Docker storage, Docker image, compose and container orchestration, Kubernetes basic architecture, high availability and scalable application, Kubernetes networking and storage, all the way pod designing and multi-container pods and advanced scheduling concepts, Kubernetes monitoring, logging and debugging, advanced Kubernetes concepts and application security, as well as how to prepare for Kubernetes application developer certification. This is 8-week roadmap where we take you from basics to advanced level and help you to get certified. We have a dedicated team working for CB preparation and most important on-job support. If you are interested, I would like to invite you for a 90-minute free class with our certified expert trainer, which will not only help you to learn basics, but it will also give you an idea of the learning part to follow. This interactive session will help you to gaining an understanding of why learn container and Kubernetes, what is container and Kubernetes, images, Docker file, registry, microservice architecture, demo on deploying Jenkins on container and access, and more other topics. You can register for this free class by visiting k21academy.com/CKAD02. Let me show you how you can register for this free class. Go to any browser and type k21academy.com/CKAD02 and hit enter. After that, it will redirect to the page. Now click on register now. Fill out your details like your name, your email address, and finally your phone number. Now hit register now. After that, you will get a thank you page where you will get all the necessary information about this free class, like what we are going to cover and how you can join this webinar. If you found this video helpful, please give a thumbs up. If you have any doubts or queries, you can put them down in comment section. Our team will get back to you. Till then, take care.